Wow, is that a book?
Hey Star Trek book fans, Dan Gunther here. Welcome to the long-awaited latest episode of the Treklit Report, where I review a new release Star Trek novel. Admittedly, in this case, a few months after the release. I'm a little behind on these, but I hope you'll be able to bear with me and enjoy this review of Star Trek Discovery, The Way to the Stars by Una McCormack. Now, when this novel was first announced, I remember reading on the Trek BBS a comment, and I can't remember who made the comment, but it was very good. They said that a Tilly novel written by Una McCormack is the thing in my life that I didn't realize I needed until I knew it was coming, or something along those lines. And I can't agree more. Una McCormack is one of my favorite Star Trek novel writers, and Tilly has turned out to be one of my absolute favorite characters on Star Trek Discovery. It's kind of a toss-up depending on who's on screen at the time, whether it's her or Saru. But I really do enjoy Mary Wiseman's portrayal of the character of Tilly, and I was really excited to get a look into some backstory for her. Una McCormack has, of course, written other excellent Star Trek novels such as Hollow Men, The Never-Ending Sacrifice, and a personal favorite of mine, The Crimson Shadow. Also of note is that this is the first Star Trek Discovery novel to actually feature the Discovery. In the framing story, we get Michael Burnham and Sylvia Tilly aboard the Discovery. And like I said, this is just the framing story. The main bulk of the story takes place when Tilly is 16 years old before she's joined Starfleet Academy. As usual, the second part of this review will be filled with spoilers, so before I get to that part, I just want to give my kind of spoiler-free review. I felt this was a really excellent exploration of Tilly's backstory of, like I said, one of my favorite characters on Discovery, written by one of my absolute favorite Star Trek authors. The situations that Tilly finds herself in are interesting, and we get a really unique perspective by seeing things through her eyes. She encounters the universe in a way that we don't usually see in Star Trek, which is a unique perspective and one that I really appreciated. So with all that said, I think I have to give this one a solid 5 stars, a really nice coming-of-age story for Tilly, kind of in the vein of not quite a young adult novel, but in that similar kind of feel where the character progresses through a very important stage of her life, and we see what it is that makes her who she is later in life. So here we go. From this point on, there will be spoilers for The Way to the Stars, so if you haven't read it yet, be warned, there are spoilers ahead. So as I said, the bulk of the novel takes place when Tilly is 16 years old, and she's kind of reached a turning point. She's currently living with her grandparents, away from the overbearing influence of her mother, Siobhan. Tilly is someone who experiences a great deal of anxiety and pressure to succeed from especially her mother, who hasn't been able to really strike a balance between recognizing her daughter's needs and her own wish for her to succeed. We see from Tilly's perspective that she never quite believes that she's good enough, thanks in large part to her mother's constant pressure to perform and excel to near perfection levels. Tilly's mother has a very set goal in mind for Tilly and where she wants to see her go in her career, and that's to enter the diplomatic corps like she is, and sends her to a boarding school on Talaris 4. Her mother is often very judgmental about her grades and success, whereas Tilly just kind of needs encouragement and a parent who is a little bit more understanding. On Talaris 4, Tilly finally finds herself with some degree of autonomy away from her parents and her grandparents, and kind of begins to forge her own path a little bit. She starts an engineering club, which her mother is critical of, and joins the rowing team. And it seems that a lot of things are going well for her, but once again, her mother kind of derails things and pressures her into quitting one of the two things that she's done, and she ends up quitting the engineering club, which clearly means a lot to her, and it's really sad to see her give that up, and the effect that this has on Tilly. She makes at least one close friend there, her roommate, whom she eventually pushes away due to her single-minded determination, to succeed. And of course, we see this trouble brewing between the two of them, but Tilly is oblivious to it because she's so focused on getting perfect grades. When Tilly's final project turns into a bit of a disaster, she foils the school's security system and ends up running away, hitching aboard a freighter and setting off for parts unknown. This part of the story is really interesting and shows a lot of growth for Tilly. She's in way over her head, but grows up pretty fast and learns to deal with situations as they come up. Gets into some very dangerous situations, but luckily is able to find people along the way that are able to help her along. Now, this time on the Lamb doesn't last too long. She ends up on a planet and is all set to kind of make a new life for herself there when her family finally catches up with her. And her grandparents are able to convince her mom that maybe the path that Siobhan has for Tilly is not the right one for her, and that she needs to forge her own path. And at this point, she ends up joining her father, who we've seen a little bit of, but not learned a lot about, on the USS Dorothy Garrard, which is the ship that he is an officer on board. This is kind of her first real look at Starfleet. I really liked this bit of perspective from her because a lot of times we see characters who kind of idolize Starfleet, the young people that really want to join Starfleet, Wesley Crusher, for example, or Jake Sisko, who doesn't want to join Starfleet but has a father who, influences him and initially seems to want him to join Starfleet. And it's not that Jake doesn't like Starfleet, it's just not for him. But in this case, Tilly is someone who's never really liked Starfleet and kind of has one view of them, but has that view kind of turned around as she spends time on the Dorothy Garrard. I also have to give a shout out to the captain of the Dorothy Garrard, Captain Yindi Holden, who is one of my favorite literature Star Trek characters now. I really hope that we get to see more of her somehow in a novel, perhaps, but I really like this character. She's kind of an Aboriginal Aussie captain. She was a really interesting character, and I really liked that we got to spend a bit of time with her as well. The Dorothy Garrard is a cool ship as well. It's a true science vessel exploring the frontier and really doing that kind of archaeology and hard science work that you always hear of in Star Trek, but we usually get to see the big explorers, but this was a new perspective that I really appreciated. Tilly finally gets to explore her love of engineering, and it's very clear that that's where she wants to go, and thankfully we see that kind of career path and how that goes. For me, I think the central theme of this novel is about lack of good communication, and we see that most clearly between Tilly and her mother. On both sides, Tilly is unable to articulate herself and make her wishes clear to her mother, and her mother doesn't listen to Tilly and just kind of projects her own wishes and desires on her daughter. We also see that through Tilly and her father, though, as well. Her father left years ago to join Starfleet and this long mission aboard the Dorothy Garrard, and Tilly always felt that she was the one that kind of pushed him away, that he left because of her. And it was simply for the fact of not speaking to him about it and not opening up about her feelings that this goes unresolved for such a long time. In fact, it carries on into the framing story, and Burnham is the one who tells Tilly to get in contact with her father and ask the question and really have that conversation. That whole situation is resolved because they finally speak openly about the issue to one another. So there's some good lessons in this book about communication and being open to the people around you and being open with the people around you as well. So all in all, there's a lot of really great stuff to enjoy in this novel. I really, like I said, love Tilly. I love Una McCormack's writing, and I love the little details that Una incorporates into her novels. So like I said, the original characters I think are really great. I want to mention Tilly's roommate Rosera and her parents as standouts as well as the engineer that Tilly befriends on the freighter. This is a fun character as well that ends up being a huge influence in Tilly's life going forward. Also, there's a blink and you'll miss it Harry Potter reference, which I appreciated as well. I thought that was a nice little touch. So kudos to Una McCormack for including that, even though she can't outright say it because, corporations are mean about that sort of stuff. But it was really great to read a fun novel. Again, I wouldn't say young adult novel, but with a lot of similar themes to young adult stories and coming of age type stories. So if you have any love of discovery or the character of Tilly, I definitely recommend picking up The Way to the Stars. It's a fun novel and a great addition to my head continuity of Star Trek Discovery. Also, I should point out that Captain Yindi Holden and the Dorothy Garrard were both referenced and shown in a recent comic, the Star Trek Discovery Captain Saru comic. So neat to see that little kind of cross-pollination of different media, the books and the comics, and thanks to Kirsten Beyer, who's heading up that division over in the CBS writers room for that kind of commingling of things there. So good stuff. I also want to say that Bruce Gibson and I got the chance to talk to Una McCormack on the Literary Treks podcast about this novel. Really should go give that a listen if you haven't yet. It's a fun conversation. She's one of my favorite people to talk to. Here's a brief clip from that. As a little aside with the Dorothy Garrard too, I really liked the T-shirts that they wore. You know, on Discovery we have the disco, but for this vessel it's the Dottie, which I thought that was brilliant.
Thank you. That's one of those things that you're just sitting there and you write it down and you go, God, I'm good.
Absolutely.
Well, I had a good chuckle with that. I just had a lot of fun with that. It just pops out and you go, yes, that's perfect. I'm having that.
Excellent. Yeah, that brought a smile to my face because people always wonder, you know, what does the Enterprises say? I mean, it could say the Big E for all, you know, like it's just the nickname. I like it. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about this novel in the comments below. I do have more book reviews coming. I still have to review the Next Generation novel Available Light, as well as the TOS novel The Captain's Oath by Christopher L. Bennett. So look for those reviews in the next few weeks, a month or so. So once again, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you to the Patreon supporters for their help in bringing these videos to you. I'll see you next time. And until then, live long and prosper.